In the last lesson, we analyzed the construction of the dam fight between Paul and Alex. We started out by reviewing the script as it was written. Then we discussed creative ways of playing with time, specifically by intercutting between young and old versions of Alex and Paul, which gave an entirely new feel and level of intrigue to the exchange. In this lesson, we're going to bring this sequence to life through the addition of sound design, music, and a number of audio and video filters and effects. I'm going to pass things back over to Brian to show you what we did.
Before we hop into our timeline, let's take a second to watch the scene straight through as is, from what I will call my assembly edit. This is just my picture edit, with my rough dialogue edit, without any sound effects, music, or visual effects in place. So, let's take a look.
Still can't remember what happened. Some things, some memories never came back.
What are we doing here?
Tell me what happened.
You know what happened.
I want to hear you say it.
Why? You found me here,
What are you doing here?
and
And what?
Paul,
Say it.
why are you doing this?
Look at me!
Because of what you did to me! Tell me what happened! Alex, stop! Would you just talk to me for a second? Stop it! Stop it! God, you're such a baby!
You get everything!
What?
God, you couldn't leave it alone! You couldn't stand the idea of it, could you?
What do you expect from her? She doesn't love you.
Shut up, Paul.
Is that what you thought? She's in love with you? Wake up!
Did you push me? No. You say it was an accident. You know what you did!
I don't know! I don't know what happened. I tried to save you. I couldn't get to you in time.
She was the only thing that brought me back. I felt so helpless. I gave her my heart and my soul.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
You really want to ask me? Maybe you do it for the people who love you. Until you're ready again.
I don't know if I can do it.
Neither do I.
Doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter what happens.
Okay, so, it's an assembly edit. In fact, it's pretty empty, isn't it? So, let's take a look at how we can take this rougher assembly cut and really bring it to life. Now, when we last left off on this timeline, I had turned off a few tracks to make it easier to focus on just the picture tracks and the dialogue tracks. But now, it's time to really take a deep dive into the sound effects, music, and visual effects that take this scene to the next level and help motivate those creative edit choices. And so using the magical power of my timeline views, so first, let's take a look at the sound effects. I'm going to go ahead and enable this first sound effect here on my timeline. You'll notice something is different right away when I push play at the start of the scene. That waterfall is really rushing now. All of a sudden, our distant wide shot that was only there to show spatial relationship and give us a break from the intense drama plays an entirely new role in the story, as the sound of rushing water intensifies now that we've seen it on screen. And our timeline has a lot of this ambient sound scattered throughout it to help sell the scene setting. It's all these orange clips that I'm enabling right now. I created atmosphere to fill 3 important components to this scene. The first component is all the shots where we see the waterfall, like this wide shot here, and this one back here. The sound we hear in these shots is both diegetic, meaning it's a sound that exists in the scene, and foreshadowing. I wanted to, in addition to giving the audience a break from the heavy dialogue in this moment, also point the audience's attention to the tall, loud, and scary waterfall that Alex and Paul are dangerously close to.
Would you just talk to me for a second? Stop it! Stop it! God, you're such a baby!
You get everything!
The second atmosphere we hear a lot is more rushing water, but it's not as present. Even though the cameras are on the bridge in these shots and thus would be much closer to the water, because we aren't physically seeing it in the shots, it should be playing more like background sound. Take a listen to more of this scene.
What?
God, you couldn't leave it alone! You couldn't stand the idea of it, could you?
What do you expect from her? She doesn't love you.
Shut up, Paul.
This second, quieter water sound only plays during flashbacks. Not only is Alex and Paul's relationship more turbulent in the flashbacks, but it helps separate the flashbacks from the present day. And that brings me to the third atmosphere I went with, and that's gentle wind, birds chirping, and some very light water movement. Let me jump backwards in the timeline here and play a little bit of this for you.
And
Then what?
Paul,
Say it.
why are you doing this?
This bed of atmosphere plays all throughout my cut, sometimes getting quieter to make room for the dialogue, and sometimes getting louder to where there are moments of long pauses between the characters. Now, for a scene like this, I did not do a tremendous amount of Foley audio. I could have spent hours working on creating all of the footsteps and mixing them into the scene, all the clothing movement as the characters move. I could have amplified the sounds of Paul's throwing his crutches and enhanced the sounds of Alex's clothing scraping on the wall as he slides down, but for the most part, the production audio was pretty decent, and none of that was necessary to get a cut ready to screen. However, I did focus on a few key pieces of Foley. At the top of the scene, as Alex approaches Paul on the bridge, I built in his footsteps in just this moment, as our distance to the character would make it more likely we'd be able to actually hear them. And then, they stop. I discontinued the footsteps from here on out. Footsteps take a long time to line up, and there's quite a lot of walking in this scene. My feeling was that if I introduced those footsteps at the top of the scene and let them come to a natural stop, like when Alex scuffs his foot and comes to a bit of a rest, then the audience would instinctively be hearing them the rest of the way through, even if they aren't there. It's also important to remember that this is not the final sound mix. There's a good chance that all of this work is going to get looked at by a professional sound mixer who will go through the timeline and do that kind of exhaustive work. Or if we're the one-stop shop on this film, we'd be doing that kind of work as part of our final mix pass at the end of the editing process. The second area where I did some Foley work was in the fight sequence, back here. I have a handful of important clips that I'm going to enable so you can hear the fight with all the Foley turned on.
Up!
Did you push me? No.
You say it was an accident.
You know what you did!
I don't know!
What you are probably noticing are all those nice, brutal punches, whooshes, and grunts as these two guys duke it out on the bridge. Combined with the production audio, in which the actors did a great job of including some of their own heavy breathing and grunts, and the ambient water rushing, it's starting to feel a lot more like a fight scene. Fight scenes need a lot of audio, because they sound ridiculous without it.
Wake up!
Did you push me? No.
Yeah, so it's pretty ridiculous. So every punch is accented with a relatively familiar punching sound and a heavy grunt noise, all blended in with the other production audio. However, there is one moment in the fight that I want to draw your specific attention to, and it's this shot that we looked at earlier that I mentioned we'd be returning to. Right here, we left a note for ourselves to create the flashback blur look. So we need to do that and also support this moment with some sound design. In the cut, Alex is punched in the head repeatedly, and I felt like we needed some way to bring this emotional fight back into the present. So I found some coverage where the production team did in fact use adult Alex in the fight scene and decided to cut that in. I created a match cut so that in the preceding shot, we see Paul punch Alex in the face, and in the next shot, we see from a new angle adult Alex receiving that punch while young Paul stands over him. But there was an issue. The actors didn't take this shot very far, and I needed more time to let this play to really let it sink in. So I took the shot into After Effects and used a heavy dose of my blurring technique from our flashback visual stylization lesson. Here's how that shot looks now. And that's working really nicely, but there's just one more thing that will really tie this together. We need the sound to help us get into Alex's headspace. So I decided to include a bit of a tinnitus ear ringing noise in there. I used some keyframes to warble it and brought that in just after he takes the punch. So on its own, that sounds like this. Combined with the visuals, we get the sense that Alex has had his wits knocked around in his head. You are probably hearing one more thing in there that's adding a little more energy to this sound design, and that's all the reverberation to the punches and grunts. Well, if you check out my track labels here, you can see that I have a track called DX5-FX and a track called SX23_stereo-FX. These tracks contain a reverb effect on them, so anything I put in there will get reverbed without needing to render it. It's a super quick way to audition reverb effects, even if they won't be final. You'll notice there are a few sound effects and dialogue noises that I've dropped in there, getting them to reverb along with the actual sound effect being heard clearly. Have a listen to just the reverb component. And that's it for my Foley work. That's all the sounds you can see on screen, at least the important ones. The next pass I did on the scene involved all the sounds that you can't really see on screen. Things like whooshes or transition noises or extra echoes or ghostly air or whatever other fun names your sound library calls these things. They are non-diegetic noises, things that you hear but are not motivated by an actual object on screen. Let's hop back to earlier in the scene so I can show you an example. In this early part of the scene, we get our first cut to young Paul in place of adult Paul, and this moment has always been a pivotal edit to show the audience that they should expect the past and the present to collide in some way. It needed sound design to help do that, so take a listen closely.
Some things.
You are hearing two things happen. First, there's a cinematic bass hit here. Then I took the rushing water ambience and brought it down to my reverb track, so that as it fades out, it sort of reverbs out as though the sound has dropped out of Alex's ears for a brief moment. From here on out, though it might seem complex, it was really easy to just pick and choose areas where I wanted to dress up the scene a little bit with fun cinematic sounds like bass hits and suckbacks. I even took some dialogue, usually from a time-displaced Paul, and set it to reverb as well, like you can see here.
In here.
Tell me what happened.
You know what happened.
This is all attempting to be in the service of the story, of course. Paul's echoing voice represents a memory that Alex is forming of that fateful day out on the bridge as teenagers, when Paul asked him the exact same thing. This combination of cinematic sounds and reverbing the dialogue continues. We do it again here with dialogue and a suckback sound together.
You found me here?
What are you doing here?
More sound effects like this are present throughout, because of all the times we see Paul and Alex switch time periods in this scene. I used these sounds to help you understand when something was a memory or when something was a flashback. The two are slightly different. In one case it would be something Alex is remembering, or perhaps misremembering, and in the other we're seeing a past tense story play out. At the end of the fight, as we finally bring the past tense flashback to the present day and stop the shifting back and forth, there's one final sound effect that snaps us back in place. And with that, we're firmly rooted back in the present day. Now, the scene is probably looking and sounding pretty good, and I think we could get away with it like this, but there is one more component to the sound that I think is important to understand, and that's the music. Let me enable all the music so you can hear it. Now, there is just one thing I want to say, and that's if you haven't taken a look at our other courses yet, you should really look at and consider the art of music editing. What I'm going to deconstruct for you here is just a fraction of what we teach in that course. What I see most often when I work with other editors is a couple of tracks of video, a couple of tracks of audio, and then one track of music with a single music cue that just runs the entire length of the scene. And also it's probably in Premiere. Like, where did you find that perfect music cue that perfectly fits your movie? Just wondering if you could hook me up, you know? But that is not how we roll here. To avoid overwhelming you with music theory, what I did with the music here is pretty simple and straightforward, so let me break it down for you. First, I took a listen to all the tracks from the original score for Chapman, and one of them felt really great for the intro. It's got a long, droning sort of feeling, very atonal, doesn't really sound like much of anything, but it helps fill out some of the dead spaces in the scene. I'll cut that in under the first part of the conversation. Here's that music just by itself. And here it is, mixed with some of the rest of the scene.
What are we doing here?
Tell me what happened.
You know what happened.
I want to hear you say it.
You can see that I'm using keyframes to raise and lower the volume of my music underneath my dialogue. Feel free to mix using either keyframes or adding edits to your clips, adjusting clip levels, and putting dissolves between them, whichever method you prefer. For us, we went with keyframe mixing here because it's a little bit easier to do that in Avid. As the scene intensifies, so too does the music. And as we move into the fight scene, I use a long pulsating rise from our music library to help build tension. The cadences of the pulses get progressively faster. When combined with all of our Foley sound effects, it makes for a very intense dramatic build-up to the violent finale. Music can sometimes interact with sound effects in an interesting way. Sometimes music contains something that works more like a sound effect than actual music. For example, here at the end of our fight sequence, I'm using two totally different music cues in addition to my rising music cue. The first one here is like a rising hit, and it sounds like this. And the next one is coming out of a rising hit and sort of ringing out and fading out like this. When combined together with all the rest of the audio in the scene, you get this.
You know what you did! I don't know!
The rest of the scene uses some music cues that do in fact run their course for the entirety. However, unlike my earlier warning about doing this, there is a time and a place to let a music cue just run all the way through underneath your scene, and that's if the cue tends to be more of a tone or a drone, where the peaks and valleys of the cue don't specifically need to line up to anything occurring in your scene. So take a listen to this cue so you can hear what I'm talking about. Okay, you get the idea. With tones and drones like this, and the cue right after it, you can use a long crossfade to blend cues together. So, with all of our atmosphere, Foley, special non-diegetic sound effects, music, and visual effects in place, let's watch the scene in its entirety again and pay careful attention to all the small details that make up the cut.
Still can't remember what happened. Some things. Some memories never came back.
What are we doing here?
Tell me what happened.
You know what happened.
I want to hear you say it.
Why? You found me here?
What are you doing here?
And
And what?
Paul,
Say it.
why are you doing this?
Look at me!
Because of what you did to me! Tell me what happened!
Alex, stop! Would you just talk to me for a second? Stop it! Stop it! God, you're such a baby!
You get everything!
What?
God, you couldn't leave it alone! You couldn't stand the idea of it, could you?
What do you expect from her? She doesn't love you.
Shut up, Paul.
Is that what you thought? She's in love with you? Wake up!
Did you push me? No.
You say it was an accident. You know what you did! I don't know!
I don't know what happened. I tried to save you. I couldn't get to you in time.
She was the only thing that brought me back. I felt so helpless. I gave her my heart and my soul. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
You really want to ask me? Maybe you do it for the people who love you until you're ready again.
If I can do that.
Neither do I.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter what happens.
Hey guys, Chris here. So this lesson has some homework. First, cut in Foley and atmospheric sound effects to enhance the realism and immersion throughout the scene. Second, layer in music and sound design to ebb and flow the tension, building to the climax of the fight when Paul gets thrown over the dam. And third, experiment with visual effects treatments of Alex's stunned shot during the fight. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to look at how you can use sound to edit quick travel scenes and create an invisible journey for the character. All right, I'll see you in a bit.